Away we roll in the guest segment of Hour 2 of the RP show. Michael Bunting scored in his first game with the Carolina Hurricanes. Teuvo Teravainen and Jordan Staal also scored for the Hurricanes in a 5-3 victory over the Ottawa Senators. Freddie Anderson made 27 saves. Matthew Joseph had a first-period goal for the Sens. Parker Kelly and Tim Stützle teamed up for a 2-goal burst that tied it at 3 early in the third. AJ Jakubec, of course, was all over it. He joins us from TSN 1200 Ottawa. And we may talk about the football team, AJ. We may not. But let's talk about the Sens
can I decline?
game.
Like a penalty? Can I decline?
I know it's tough, man. I really feel for you. What's the mood in Ottawa? You knew it was going to be tough going into Carolina, probably the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think it's probably 50-50 excitement about this team, about the season, about ownership, about just this era of hockey that is about to be here for the Ottawa Senators for the next decade with, a lot of the best players from Jake Sanderson to Brady Tkachuk to Tim Stützle signed long-term. That's 50% of it. And then the other 50% is concern about similar issues from last year to defensive zone coverage. I mean, they played probably the best team in the East in Carolina. So it's a tough test right out of the gate. But I think there's a lot of concern, and rightfully so, about their cap situation and how it was, I think, mismanaged in the offseason. You've got other teams around the league. There's no doubt. They weren't the only team dressing 17 skaters and 2 goaltenders last night. We've seen it, I think, in 4 or 5 different places around the league already. So the fact that the cap has been flat has affected a lot of different teams. But Ottawa's the only team in that situation, and with an unsigned restricted free agent that's out of the lineup. And Shane Pinto, who's probably going to command $2.5 million, somewhere in that vicinity. So not only are they short, but they have to get rid of somebody to make room for Shane Pinto, which is problematic, and this should have been dealt with in the offseason.
Are you still doing Sens pre- and post-game on the radio?
Probably not this year. We'll wait and see. Maybe a few, but it's mostly football, basketball, soccer, and hosting the afternoon show, but certainly still connected to the team and still, paying attention to all 82 games.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, with your veteranship of that radio station, you should be able to do what you want, and it sounds like you are. Do they have the right coach and general manager with the Senators in your mind? Let's be real about it.
So it is a great question, and that's the question that we've been hearing for a long time. I mean, Pierre Dorion's been here for a long time. I mean, he was the architect of the team in 2016-17 that went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So he's been here for all 6 seasons that they missed the playoffs. DJ Smith has been here for 4 of those seasons. And not often you get that type of opportunity, especially both GM and head coach. So it's a unique situation. General manager, I think, I feel like the writing's on the wall for him, quite frankly. Steve Staios brought in as president of hockey operations, and you have to think that he eventually is going to pick his own people. But in the meantime, giving Pierre Dorion a chance, and I think that's fair. But when you come in and the first impression you get is of a mismanaged cap situation, they've never had to deal with this before because basically they haven't been spending to the cap. But now all of a sudden, okay, I get it. You had a bunch of players that you had to sign. Like, why did they go out and sign Vladimir Tarasenko in the offseason? That, to me, is the big question. He was a ghost last night, and I get it. It's just 1 game out of 82. But all of a sudden, if you take that contract out of there, you could make some room for Shane Pinto. And, yeah, you would have been able to dress maybe a Yuri Smakel, who looked excellent in training camp, a 26-year-old rookie that's played the last few years in Europe and looked good for the Czechs in the World Championship. So they did not ice their best roster last night, and to me, that's on the general manager. So he absolutely should be feeling heat when you're talking about 6 years out of the playoffs and the situation they're in. With the head coach, DJ Smith.
I'm sorry. I want to stop you there. Let's talk about something more fun. Sorry to cut you off, but we got to get. I got to get to the football too. But Dave Sullivan Longtime friend of mine is watching in White City, Sask, and he writes in on the EMJ Marketing text line. He says, hey, Rod, Connor Bedard needs someone to play with. He needs his Malkin. Hall and Donato are not going to make him shine. Listen, your thoughts on Connor Bedard? A goal and an assist so far in 2 games for Chicago, 1 in each game. I said a point-a-game guy. They're not going to be great, but eventually they probably will be with him in the lineup. He'll be a career Blackhawk. What do you think about the current and the future, Chicago and Bedard?
I mean, what a special player. I don't think I'm saying anything that people haven't been saying, and certainly it's a pretty obvious thing to say, but just his shot's incredible. The way he can create chances for himself, I think it is fascinating to watch. I didn't see any of the game last night. I was watching the Sens and Canes, but certainly watched the entirety of that game against the Penguins, and was just... it's very rare I find myself in a game, and I get it, it's game 1, but I just found myself wanting to watch isolation of Connor Bedard, and so impressed with what I've seen and just everything he's done, whether it's on the ice, whether how he's handled things off the ice. He's a special talent, special player. I mean, I think they already went out and got, some veterans in Hall and Foligno and some of the other guys that they brought in the offseason, Corey Perry, to help insulate him and help him out. But this is going to be about the future. So I think he's going to be just fine with the group that they have. And yeah, they're not going to win a ton of games this year. I think they're going to be bottom 10, but I don't actually think they're going to be bottom 5. I think he's got the right coach there, and the fact that they brought in those veterans are going to help. So yeah, I mean, in the long run, yeah, you want to see Bedard play with some of the top players in the game. That's going to come. But in the meantime, I think it's a good situation for him in the short term as well.
Pittsburgh missed the Penguins' Sid's first year, and Edmonton was awful for years with McDavid before they figured out what to do with him. So, and lastly, on the Red Blacks, I don't know what to say. I felt your pain when I was on your show. What's the answer? Man, they're upset, and I don't blame them up there.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I think they have to do a top-to-bottom review of everything in the off season. And look, I'm a believer. I look at Sean Burke and Brendan Taman and Bob Dice and Kahari Jones and Travis Moore and Baron Miles and all these people in the organization, top to bottom, and they're all good football people. And for whatever reason, something's not working. And the last 2 weeks, like 4-10, was disappointing for sure, especially because they let so many games get away. So many close games that you could say they coulda, woulda, shoulda. But you are what your record says you are, as Bill Parcells famously said. In the meantime, the last 2 weeks have been unacceptable. Pathetic, as far as I'm concerned. I want to see a response. Don Brennan went out in post-media and ripped them and said, even questioned if Bob Dice should be back and if Sean Burke should be back. And you know what? They haven't had somebody. Don Brennan's been mainly a hockey reporter in this city for the last few years, and he's been around for decades in this market. I actually think they needed somebody to kind of light a fire under them. And I hope everyone, from the players to the coaches to everyone, read that article and got pissed off about it and said, you know what? We're going to shove it up his rear end, because the last couple of weeks, they've been awful. And it's been unacceptable for this fan base to see what we saw the last couple of weeks. So I'm hoping, look, they're playing in Toronto this week. I give them no chance of winning this game, but they better be competitive. They better show some pride, because the last 2 weeks just haven't been good enough on every level.
As your dad says, he always brings it. That's you, AJ. You brighten my day. Good to see you, brother. Let's catch up soon.
Sounds good, Roddy. Take care.
The great AJ Jakubec, the voice, as you can tell, of the Red Blacks, TSN Ottawa Radio.